Next, it is my pleasure to introduce the man who preceded me as county chair and who has been invaluable in helping me to learn the job. He made the mistake of telling me when I took the position that he would do whatever he could to help me. I think he's probably regretted that comment many times since. Please welcome Bill Joseph.
She's right about that, you know. Never make an offer out of graciousness because somebody will take you up on it. Wow, look at this. Look at this room. Ladies and gentlemen, we're in Gillespie County, Texas, and there were folks that had to be turned away. This is fantastic. I can't tell you what a tribute that this is to Kathy, what a tribute I think this is to our county and our party, but it is also a tribute to the beautiful lady on my right and the remarkable gentleman on my left who labored in the vineyard all those years ago when there wasn't too much of a vineyard to labor in. And they did it, and they did it with extraordinary dedication in the face of pretty remarkable odds. Now, I had had some involvement. We came from Houston. We came in 2007, and I'd had some involvement in politics, but my involvement was primarily judicial because as I referred to Justice Mohlberg, I am a recovering attorney. But I saw in the paper or something that the Democrats are having a meeting or something like that, and I went by, and it was over in the EMS center, and there was about, a dozen people or less there. Everybody was very grumpy. We were all under the misimpression at the time that nothing could be worse than George W. Bush. So this bunch took the opportunity once a month, and there's a couple, three old timers in the crowd still, but they took the opportunity once a month to sit around and where we could all just sort of mutter under our breath about George W. Bush. Little did we know. So, my first or second meeting, George spotted me. And George apparently decided that I was going to be the next county chair. Now, I wasn't on the memo list. I didn't know this, and George decided to keep me on a need-to-know basis. So the next thing I know, I am becoming the county chair in Gillespie County, and they need to have a little something to introduce me to the world of Texas Democratic politics. So there was a convention in the offing. And before we have a convention, there are several meetings that have to take place. And why don't we send the newbie? So they sent me to the resolutions meeting. Now, for most of you I'm sure know, but to anyone that doesn't know, the county chairs, or rather the county conventions, everybody comes up with a resolution or two or three that they want to send to the party. And then we have a big meeting and we get all those sorted out, and that becomes the platform that our candidates run on. So it's sort of important that if your candidate has to defend an issue, make it a defensible issue. Well, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I said, what do I do? They said, you just go on up there and pick something insignificant. So I show up, and what do they give me? Education. So now I've got this stack in front of me of county resolutions from all over the state about education. And I look at the first one on top, and it says it is the position of the Democratic Party of the state of Texas to repeal the No Child Left Behind law. All right, teachers don't like it, it hadn't worked. That sounds like a nice resolution. I turn the page and read the second resolution. And it says, after suffering for 8 years under the tyranny of the war criminals Richard Cheney and George W. Bush, it is the position of the, my God, nobody can defend this. Sitting next to me is a woman. She has long hair braided down almost to the floor. I started college in 1967. She was wearing something that we would call a granny dress back then. Anybody remember those? She had on little round John Lennon glasses. She had earth shoes on. Negative shoes. And I make my recommendation to the committee. I think we need to take resolution number 1. She says, wait a minute, I like number 2. I think we need to debate and vote on this. I immediately call a timeout. I run into the hall and I call George. What in the hell do I do with this? And George, in his inimitable fashion, says to me, go in there and straighten them out. And that's exactly what I did. And we got the resolution that we needed, that our candidates could sell. And at that juncture, I learned one of the first retail politics lessons that I learned from George Keller. And the anecdotes could go on all night. The lessons could go on all night. But I did what he told me to. I went in there and I straightened them out. George was a remarkable man in so many ways. We grew quite familiar with one another. We grew quite in sync with one another. And for the 5 or 6 years that I was county chair, it was one of the delights of my life, and I owe it to George. Because what George taught me was about community, about service, about retail politics, and periodically, you need to just go in there and straighten people out. I am honored to introduce Kathleen Keller to tell you more about my dear friend George. Kathleen.
Well, I don't have the speech that so many others have had, but I will tell you in all honesty, George would be shocked at what is in front of me. And there are a lot of unfamiliar faces, but I'm delighted to see it. Because when we moved here in 2000, and we moved to Tierra Linda, which is right on the edge of Gillespie County, and once we got settled in, we started looking for Democrats. You think we could find any? It was really difficult. Finally, we found out that there's a little group that meet at Mr. Gaddy's. So we went there, and then there were 7 of us. So we kind of figured out, well, there's a lot of work to do, because at that point in time, most of the Democrats had to be closeted Democrats, especially if they had a business of any sort. So anyways, we decided to take our desire for growing in the community, but we figured, well, you got to find something that you can do that can give the Democrats visibility. So what better visibility than the 4th of July parade? So we didn't have a float at the time, but Frank Beal, who was one of the 7, he offered his red truck, so we decorated it up and we were in the 4th of July parade, much to the shock and disbelief of the parade goers who didn't know there were at least 7 Democrats. Okay? So it was interesting because in the parade, there are a lot of people that come from Austin and Houston and that kind of thing. So we didn't feel like we were totally alone. But in the crowd were two people that are here tonight and have been very involved, and they thought they were the only 2 Democrats in Gillespie County. And it was Larry and Shirley Truitt. And they've been involved ever since. And at times, Larry, I guess, got the name of the float man because he ended up in his garage building a wonderful float that could be disassembled and reassembled. And we would have fun decorating parties the night before the parade. So, and George wasn't one to miss a party. And he did like his beverages of sorts to give him that extra spirit, you know, kind of thing. But we had so much fun, and the membership grew and grew, and we had picnics at Lady Bird and set up the Hill Country Coalition, which were the surrounding counties of Van Buren and Kerr, and of course Gillespie and Kendall. And at one time we had a pretty good size one. There were about 400 people, and it was in Llano. But anyways, it was always a goal to establish the Democrats as a very distinguished, reputable, honest group of people. And so time did grow, and look at you now. George would have been so proud. So I don't really have too much more to say, because when Kathy asked me to speak, I said, oh, sure, this will be wonderful. And then I thought, I was not keeping a journal then, so the memory banks weren't exactly what they should have been. And of course, at this time in our life, we kind of do a little downsizing. I think I overdid it a little bit. But anyways, thank you so much for being here. And George would have loved it. Okay, thank you.